1, 2, 3, 4, let's go.
It's Heartbeat
It's a fabulous show.
Alaska.
Hi, Heartbeat Alaska.
It's Heartbeat Alaska.
Pull up a chair and enjoy the show.
Hear it from Sitka to Barrow. Gather around for Jeannie's show. It's the Aleut, the Indian, and the Eskimo. It's the Aleut, the Indian, and the Eskimo.
Welcome one, welcome all.
Hello everyone and welcome to Heartbeat Alaska, Native News and Native Information. I'm Jeannie Green. Thank you so very much for joining us. Hello to my good friends in Pablo, Montana. They watch us from KSKC-TV out of Pablo, the Salish Kootenai tribe. Nice to have you with us. Hello to our new viewers in the state of Washington from KWSU-TV and their sister station as well. So nice to have you with us. And I'm so glad you joined us as well. Today on our program, we take a hard look at the Denali Commission. Some villages and communities across the state are feeling a little left out because of their investment policy. We take a hard look at the Denali Commission coming up right after this. Heartbeat Alaska is pleased to announce a brand new official hotel. We're brought to you now by Millennium Alaskan Hotel, the official hotel of Heartbeat Alaska. And
Heartbeat Alaska is also brought to you by Frontier Flying Service. Thank you, Frontier, for getting Heartbeat Alaska airborne.
Heartbeat Alaska is brought to you in part by Brown's Electric Lighting Gallery. Thank you, Brown's Electric, for your generous support of Heartbeat Alaska. Heartbeat Alaska is made possible by Kupik Carlisle Transportation, your full-service transportation and logistics company.
welcome back. The Denali Commission has been building up the infrastructure of many of the villages in rural Alaska for about 5 years now. Infrastructure such as utilities and bulk fuel projects. In spite of all the work they've done, the need in rural Alaska is still great. All across the state of Alaska, in the villages and small towns that make up rural Alaska, there is a need for help. Even in the 21st century, people across the state are living without many of the conveniences of the 20th century. From hauling drinking water to honey buckets and sewage lagoons, much of rural Alaska seems to be trapped in the past. Life in the remote villages of Alaska requires hard work and lots of it. A lifestyle that urban residents take for granted, including running water, heat, flush toilets, and medical services, are often not available to the residents who call rural Alaska home. Even today, rural residents spend much of their time gathering and collecting the basic necessities of life. In Akiachak, Alaska, located on the Kuskokwim River, many of the homes are without running water and flush toilets. Residents find themselves hauling water from a nearby lake on a weekly basis, much like their ancestors did centuries ago. We sat down with a group of elders from different villages across the state to hear some of their concerns about life in rural Alaska.
Too many jobs, and the way we lived traditional, and we lived pretty much off land, and since there's not much work, but the young people that comes back to the village are working. And so there's a tribal office and city office.
The 82 maybe less hit running water out at housing.
The housing was built in 1982, but in his mind, he feels like they're not finished yet. There's no running water, and in his opinion, their village is behind in acquiring these things like running water and safe drinking water.
Although the remedy may seem simple, the cost of bringing rural Alaska up to date is phenomenal. It costs a great deal to get supplies and equipment to these rural villages, and that in turn means a higher cost of living. Constructing a starter home in Anchorage can often exceed $150,000. Now double or even triple that expense, and you have a better idea of the cost of living in rural Alaska. Even today, as we watch the price of gasoline soar to $1.70 a gallon, the people of Barrow, Alaska, and the surrounding villages are paying $3.25 a gallon. Senator Ted Stevens realized that without help from the federal government, it would be impossible for people in rural Alaska to catch up with the rest of the country. He convinced Congress to help put in place some of the basic infrastructure the rest of America has enjoyed for decades. In 1998, the Denali Commission Act was signed into law. The Denali Commission is an innovative federal-state partnership designed to provide critical utilities, infrastructure, and economic support throughout Alaska. The Denali Commission was designed to help remote communities move closer to economic self-sufficiency and provide new opportunities for residents of these communities, while maintaining traditional and cultural values which are the root of their existence. Since it began, over $300 million have passed through the Denali Commission and into rural Alaska communities, building sustainable infrastructures and projects that have in turn provided local residents with jobs that would have otherwise not existed. Recently, the Denali Commission has implemented a new investment policy, requiring potential funding recipients to prove sustainability within their village. This means that villages must show that they can maintain facilities and services in the present and future before they may be granted funding. Specific indicators of communities' potential to achieve long-term sustainability include, but are not limited to, population trends, which reveal high rates of population decline, greater than 20% over a 10-year census period.
We have approximately $100 million a year in funding. The needs in rural community are in excess of $1 or $2 billion. So we can't address all the needs that currently exist. So what we have to do is allocate the monies that we have in the most appropriate manner. That sometimes means we have to establish criteria, and some of the things that we're going to look at are population. Where are the trends? Because this gets to the sustainability issue. If a village is losing people, and there's a trend in place that suggests that as much as they would like to have services, they can't maintain those services at the level that we would currently be looking at. Services for a village of 500 are different than services offered to a village of 100.
Small population bases, less than 100 year-round residents.
There is a point at which there is really very, very little chance that there will be people properly employed to maintain the structure, you lose the sustainability, and now what have you done? You've put in place a very expensive structure that will last a little while and be gone because it won't be maintained. Why won't it be maintained? Because there's not enough work and not enough money in that economy to pay for the person who's going to do it. I mean, they're going to need other jobs. They don't have it. That's the nature of an economy that gets lost in it.
Significantly higher per capita investment than for the average community for all public infrastructure in the community.
When you have a village with very, very few individuals in it, obviously the cost of any project up there is going to be extraordinary in terms of per capita, because they're dividing the cost of the project by fewer and fewer people. At some stage, that just becomes undefensible. I mean, you spent how many millions of dollars to build what? For how many people? That kind of a question that comes back at you. So again, you've got to be able to kind of keep these things in the perspective of the cost per individual of bringing some of the goods and services that are needed.
I can see the pros and cons on both sides. When you're an entity looking at many communities, you have to come up with some criteria. But if you're looking at seeing what has been in an area that has sustained the people living in this area, you have to adjust your standards based on each community that you're addressing, because there are certain things that will keep the community alive and growing regardless of whether or not big ticket projects come to the community to provide income.
Other indicators of a community's potential to achieve long-term sustainability include significantly higher construction unit cost than for a typical project, economic potential, including employment data. The big question is, how do you measure economic potential in a community that relies upon a subsistence economy and has very few jobs available for its residents?
If you look at our community and the members in our community, the strength, the joy, the sharing, the unity that comes from these traditional activities is what keeps us going when the sun goes down, when there's no jobs in our village, when there's nothing that we can buy that comes off that plane because we don't have the income to pay for it. The status of our people is still there regardless of whether or not they have their jobs, if they're participating in the traditional activities such as whaling and subsistence hunting and fishing and those types of activities.
One thing that I think personally that we've all come to realize in Alaska is that government cannot do it all. Government cannot build an economy. We feel on the Commission our job is to lower the cost of living where we can and encourage an economy to develop on top of that infrastructure that the public supports.
Gather around for Jeannie's show.
My name is Colleen Mack. I'm from King Cove, and I'm watching Heartbeat Alaska.
Each week, Heartbeat Alaska brings you great stories from all over the state. And we couldn't do it without the generous support of Frontier Flying Service. Frontier gets our camera crews where they need to go. So whenever you see a Frontier plane, give them a wave.
Say hi from Nuiqsut.
You might just be on Heartbeat Alaska.
Frontier Flying Service, covering Alaska for over 50 years.
Don Crombie's philosophy is, there's always room for one more. At the dinner table, in the car, in her heart. The Crombies have 6 children, 5 of them adopted. 6 children now have a mom, a dad, brothers and sisters. The Crombies made room for 6. Can you find room in your heart for one? Adopt a kid.
Or 2.
And watch them grow with love.
So far, we've heard about sustainability in the Denali Commission. Sustainability, the ability the villages have to sustain the infrastructure once it's put in place. Travel with me now to Shishmaref, Alaska, a village with the very special problem of sustainability.
One house used to be way over here on this side where there's no land anymore.
Located on Serachef Island along the Chukchi Sea, Shishmaref is a swiftly shrinking community. It's not the population that's getting smaller, but the island that is eroding at a rapid pace. Each year, the winds and waves chop away at the shores of Shishmaref, sometimes taking more than 30 feet of shoreline each season.
Old two-story building used to be over here on this side, and it just fell over.
During the winter, what's left of the barriers that were once a seawall serve as mere decorations scattered along the shores of Shishmaref. The community has been constantly moving buildings and structures back away from the cliffs, but are destined to run out of island very soon.
Old two-story building used to be over here on this side, and it just fell over.
Shishmaref has been researching new sites to relocate the community, but the bottom line is that relocating the village and building new infrastructure would be a multi-million-dollar project. Recently, representatives from the Denali Commission and national-level officers from the Department of Health and Human Resources and representatives from other organizations with vested interest in the Denali Commission visited Shishmaref to discuss their new policy and hear the concerns of local residents.
Well, we hold our commission meetings throughout the state. In January, we held our meeting in Nome. And while in Nome, I asked the commissioners to join me on a visit to Shishmaref to see the challenges that that community faces. Well, Shishmaref faces several very difficult challenges, not the least of which is Mother Nature's threat to the existence of the island itself. Recently, the community has voted to move to another location, and we wanted to see firsthand what would be involved with trying to undertake such a large solution to their challenges.
These people will have to go somewhere. They're going to continue with the life of who and what they are. They've grown up living off the ocean, providing from this land, sea, and air that's given to them from the Mother Nature, and that's who and what they are. They'll have to adapt changes to address their life and not living on an island anymore, but their true-to-life heart is going to be who and what they are, going out and gathering from the beaches, putting out the fish nets. Those type of activities are who and what they are.
Besides moving the village to a new location, there is the need for a new clinic in Shishmaref. But building new infrastructure for a community that will soon need to be relocated doesn't meet the sustainability requirements for Denali Commission funding.
Actually, this is a policy that we've been living by since the beginning of the Denali Commission. The policy indicates the kinds of indicators that we look at when we consider what size project to put into a community and how sustainable will that project be. For example, at Shishmaref, the case came out that we would not build a brand new clinic. We would rather renovate the old clinic and build a new clinic at a new site when the community moves to that new site.
These investment policy requirements have stirred mixed emotions amongst many different communities throughout the state of Alaska, causing concerns about the future of many of Alaska's rural villages.
To me, the Denali Commission is all about Alaskans making decisions about their own future as opposed to people in Washington, D.C. Senator Stevens' concept of a commission was to move that decision-making closer to the problem. And that's where we are. And that's why we're reaching out now to the communities to ask, how do we do the right thing in the right way?
With the introduction of Denali Commission's new investment policy, many rural communities are feeling left out of the loop.
Thank you, Tom.
Akutan is a community of about 76 people that clings to one of the few flat spots on Akutan Island in the Aleutians. Recently, they were able to build a much-needed new clinic. The clinic was partially funded by the Denali Commission.
No.
Joe Bereskin is the mayor of Akutan.
Getting that funding, helped us design it better, and it's structurally sound, and it'll be here a lot longer than we probably originally thought it would be in the end. It's one of the sturdiest buildings that I've been involved with as a mayor in Akutan. I've watched get built, and it'll be here for a while. That's the good part of having funding, is you can do it, like say, you do it right the first time, and it'll be all right.
But with fewer than 100 people, the commission will look very hard before committing to any future projects in the village. Since Akutan has no runway, only seaplanes can make it in. It only takes a modest wind to stir up waves too large for the plane to land. So often, Akutan is cut off from the outside. Currently, the city is planning to build a runway, and soon they will be looking for funding. The Denali Commission's new funding policy has Joe a little worried.
For them to look at population to be eligible for funding for the Denali funds, I think is probably a mistake on someone's part. I think Ted Stevens, the reason he set it up was to help rural Alaska. And, if you base it off population, you're going to take a majority of, I think, rural communities out of the picture. And I don't think it's going to do Alaska any service by changing the criteria. A lot of the communities, I think, are less with small population. Federal funds are one of the biggest funding sources they could find out there. And if they take that away, I think it's one of the biggest that they will hurt them in the long run and not serve the purpose of what the commission was set up for.
Dimitri Philemonoff, the CEO of the Aleutian Pribilof Islands Association, also worries about what the new policy will mean for villages in his region.
There's a push, it seems like, to maybe disqualify some of our smaller tribes because a number of people live in there, and I have a problem with that because they are the ones that generally need the money the most, and I feel that maybe they are being discriminated against, if you might say. Although we have worked with the Denali Commission, it's through them that we have got some projects, and it's been a very good program for our region. But with that possible cut now, I think what we'll do is we'll advocate against it.
If the Denali Commission says they are or not going to help them with funding, regardless, if those people decide that they are going to live the traditional lifestyle or take on some additional Western measures to live, they'll decide that. But they will live the life that they want, regardless of whether or not the Denali Commission comes up to help them with funding. Their needs are not going to be met in many ways, but the adaptivity of the lifestyle will meet their needs because they have the strength from within to continue with who and what they are.
Clearly, as the Denali Commission moves forward in its mission, tough decisions will have to be made. There will be good projects that go unfunded. It will be up to the 7 commissioners to make balanced decisions on how best to use their funds to help rural Alaska. And it will be up to the people of rural Alaska to hold those commissioners accountable. Alaska's Native people have a proud tradition of strength and survival. And our village leaders will need to use their vast resources from their tradition and knowledge of survival to guide the Denali Commission. Our children are counting on us to do the right thing.
We were in operation when we didn't have Denali Commission, so I'm confident if this happens that we will still make it go. Like I said, people have said to me, well, there's certain villages are dying, and I don't see that. There's our younger generation is going back more and more, it seems like.
The Denali Commission would like to hear your thoughts on the draft policy, which can be found on their website, www.denali.gov. Most importantly, your input on alternatives for making funding decisions with the limited resources available is invited. The Denali Commission will also participate in a workshop during the annual AFN convention in Anchorage on Wednesday, October 22nd from 1:30 to 4:30 p.m. at the Egan Center. The public is encouraged to attend this forum, hosted by the Foraker Group, and to include a panel discussion of funders in Alaska.
Hello, my name is Dimitri Philemonoff. I'm from Akutan, Alaska. This is my little cousin, Marky Mark. This is my other little cousin, Tommy. And you're watching Heartbeat Alaska.
Can I take your order?
Give me 15 cheeseburgers.
Can I take your order?
Can I take your number?
Can I take your order?
You got any egg?
Can I take your order?
Man, I don't have any money. All right, go.
Man, watch out!
Thank you, everyone, for joining me for this week's Heartbeat Alaska. Issues and stories from rural Alaska, stories that touch your life, whether you live in rural Alaska or not. If you have any more questions on the Denali Commission, call them at 1-888-480-4321. And by the way, at this year's AFN conference, they'll be holding a panel discussion. Check out your schedule and make sure that you're there, all right? I'm Jeannie Green for all of us here at Jeannie Green Productions in Heartbeat, Alaska. God bless you. We'll see you again at AFN, and we'll see you right here next week.
To purchase a VHS copy of this program, have your credit card number ready and call area code 907-563-7440 or mail $20 check or money order to Jeannie Green Productions, 6216 Old Seward Highway, Anchorage, Alaska 99518. Ask for the program number listed below.
See ya.